Wow, this has been a long season of Married at First Sight UK Season 7. We're down to part 1 of the reunion, and we got to find out who's still together, who's not, and yeah, we got to unpack some stuff. Hey, you guys, welcome back to Romance Review TV with Lady T. Got another recap for you guys. Love Island UK Season 7, Episode 29, the reunion part 1. And without further ado, let's talk about it. First, we're going to talk about Thomas and Adrian. Well, we know they got off to a rocky start at the beginning of the season. Thomas admitting on the wedding day about Adrian's blonde hair was not his type. Then they had the drama throughout the series with regards to sexual connection and then calling it quits after the final homestay. Well, you know, they are still remaining friends. Distant friends. I will say they have garnered a huge following so far on Instagram, but you know, they're of course no longer together, but they are still having each other's back. At what one of the things that was said in this episode, especially with the honesty box. So it was no surprise there. You know, we already had gotten their final answer, and then of course, after the show, they're still cool with each other. So let's move on to our next couple. So next we had April and George. They came in hand, look like they are in love. We know that they have had trust and commitment issues throughout the series. April, of course, is still pursuing her training. Now, I will say that there's a lot of controversy going on around George. Now, at the time of the filming of this reunion, which was in July, because the season ended in May, they were still together. At this point, it does not look like they are still together. I mean, April has removed George completely off her social media, and probably that was to be expected, especially with everything going on with him and, you know, all of the allegations and everything. Not knowing what's going on with George at this point in October, but you know, the thing is, at this point they're not together, but they showed a lot of love on screen at the final vows and at this reunion part 1. So yeah, we all know what happened, but you know, I'm not going to elaborate further because it's still an ongoing situation on George's end. But at that point at the reunion, they were still together. Kwame and Kasia. Now, these two have had a rocky experience throughout this entire process. It looked like when they took 2 steps forward, it took 10 steps back. And then they got to the end of this where they decided to end it, which was Kasia. At this point, she wanted to leave. And Kwame, of course, didn't stop her. Then there's this whole conversation going back and forth in this particular episode about who said what and whether Kasia said she was single, which she did because, of course, the producer showed a scene where she was talking to the girls at girls' night about how she's single, ready to mingle, and is a single woman, which got back to Kwame. And, of course, you know, he was pissed off about it. And then there's this whole thing about whether he was genuine throughout the whole process, and there was, you know, she stated otherwise. And, you know, at this point, it's best that they just move on. It's not going to work. And I mean, we had the issues with his homestays and her using the B word toward him a lot. It's just, you know, move away from each other. Wish them both the best. Now, this one was a little bit surprising, Whitney and Matt. Not for some people, but it was surprising to some others. Whitney and Matt came in as a couple with other people, and then they left the pairings that they were with, and they formed a connection with each other, and then they asked to re-enter the show as a dating couple. We all know the history. He got that tattoo dedicated to her toward the end of the season. Well, distance became an issue. Now, even though it seems like that was the problem with the 3 hours or whatever the distance was between them, there's still some type of emotional connection there. Now, whatever that is, I mean, even at the dinner party tonight, he did say, you know, once everything's sorted out, because I know his mom got a lot of I think she's doing fine, or maybe she's still going through the process with her cancer. He has a lot going on. And so, of course, if whatever work itself out, even if that's not the case with his mom, look like they're willing to try to come back together and try to see if they can reconnect. So I don't know, there might be hope for these two, but we'll have to wait and see. But at this point of the reunion, they were not together. Now, speaking of one of those people in one of the couples from the previous conversation, Duka left the experiment after episode 19. Of course, Whitney never was interested in him. Whitney claimed he was fake. And the thing is that he has pretty much been on his own. I think there was some talk about him possibly dating or being in a new relationship, but maybe that's going to come out in part 2, because he brought some information about that up on his Instagram in the past couple days. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. But it was interesting how it looked like he was trying to connect with one of the other couples I got to talk about later on, Chanita. And yeah, Jordan wasn't having it, even though things have changed between those two. But as we can see, we have to stay tuned to see what's going on with Duka, because he kind of gave a cryptic message yesterday that he might be in a new relationship. So we'll have to see. And then the other person that was a part of that whole twist of Matt and Whitney was Gemma. Gemma, I think, was only there a week. She was coupled up with Matt, and of course that fighting between them and, her assertiveness when it comes to what happened with what she was saying at the wedding reception and what happened when they were out to dinner, and some of the things she had to say. It did not sit well with Matt, which turned him off, and then it turns into this very crazy back and forth between those two. She came back. We really didn't see too much of a huge conversation this episode with her. She was talking with the other couples and things like that. Her and Matt had a little bit of volatility at the dinner party where they didn't want to hear each other's voice. But I don't know. And then with the two of them, Duka and Gemma, Gemma was left out of the loop. Duka wasn't. And for him to say in tonight's episode that you should have told me, he already knew. And he acknowledged that off camera on social media and Instagram. And so did Matt. So I didn't get that part, and that looks kind of shady to me. But as for Gemma, she wasn't in the loop. So I can understand her being blindsided. But when two people are not meant, or the chemistry is not there, or it's just not working, they just need to move away from each other. So, but seems like she's doing pretty well. She did a couple of lives on Instagram saying, not to give Matt all of the flack that the fans are giving him. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out on my TikTok. It's got over 500,000 views, so you can check that out as well at Romance Review TV 1. So you'll see what all of them had to say. So let's move on to our next couple. This couple right here shocked me tonight. They were my number one couple all season. They were this season's strongest couple. Plenty of scenes showing their shared sense of humor, the affection, the romance. Toward the end, we did get a little bit of Jordan having doubts about moving in together unless he's completely in love. Well, it looks like these two are officially over. And then it came out at that dinner party that Jordan really wasn't into her as much as he put on. I was so disappointed by that, because why did you lead her on? It's not a good thing to do. And then, of course, since leaving the show, Jordan has been out with, of course, taking pictures with other women. Chanita been having her little low-key time. And, pretty much hanging out with, like, Sophie and some of the other ladies from this season. But I was so disappointed in this situation. And you can tell Chanita is so hurt. And it looks like he still have whatever affection for her. But this man got commitment issues. I mean, he's scared, like the expert said. But, yeah, I mean, you went through a whole 10 weeks, whatever, going through that process with her. And then outside of the show, you just dropped off. You had all that stuff to say at the vow renewal. I was just so disappointed. But hey, it sucks. We have to see what happens at part 2. And my apology, guys, I couldn't get a better scene of this one with Jenna and Zoe, but these two actually are still together, still in love. Outside of April and George, they are the only other couple that are solid at the point of the reunion. And from what I'm seeing, I'm assuming that they're still together now. They usually do separate lives, so I'm not sure. Maybe I do know they live in different areas, but on Instagram you can connect with people all over the world in one live. So, but at this point in the reunion, they were still together and they were showing their affection at the dinner party and talking about how much they love each other. And when Jenna had COVID, Zoe would sit out in the corridor and bring her food and stuff like that. So they definitely have been showing affection, and they were doing really well at this point of the reunion. So Sophie and Jonathan was one of those couples that came in the middle, kind of like Gemma and Matt. And so they started off very well at the honeymoon, and then they hit it off. However, coming up toward the end of the season, intermingling with the other couples, it kind of went left. And especially with Jonathan's comments about weight, horse legs, and things like that. And it made it look like Sophie wasn't having a voice. Dinner party, reunion part 1, she said, based on the honesty box, that he allowed other people to infiltrate their relationship. And I think from what we saw on the show, it was the other way around, because he will always speak his mind. However, Sophie would hear things from the group and, of course, bring it into relationship. That's my take on it. Hey, I could be wrong. Just my take. It is, what it is. But at the end of the day, they did not stay together. And then we saw Matt calling out Sophie in this whole thing about her not being fake and her being different off the cameras. She walked off. Chanita was like, he didn't elaborate and give any details. So I don't know what we're missing there. Maybe after the season ends today, maybe we'll get everybody speaking out. There's been a lot of lives and stuff going on. So I'll keep my eyes to the sky. And if you guys know any other details, drop it in the comment section. But yeah, I was shocked at that. I was hoping they would have stayed together. They were like number 2 on my list during the season under Chanita and Jordan, but they're not together. So it is what it is. But we'll have to see what happened in part 2 with these two. So then, of course, we have other couples that had left the show earlier. Jess and PJ were one of the first couples to write down leave and exit the show. Jess struggled to form some type of physical attraction to PJ, even though they still have a strong friendship. PJ has been pretty much posting photos and videos with his son, and Jess has a new boyfriend who's a dental hygienist, and she's back at work at her day job, so they're doing fine at this point. Then we had Laura and Richie. They had left mid-season as well. Richie is a musician, needed a lot of emotional attention, which Laura did not want to provide. And otherwise, they have went back to their lives. They were only in the experiment only a few weeks. And besides his emotional needs, there was a lack of communication between the two of them. She pretty much went back to her job. For now, it looks like she's still pretty much single. And then Richie has continued to push on with his music career, and he's done a lot of other things with BBC Radio since leaving the show. So that's pretty much the end of that. So now we look forward to the final episode 30, which is going to be aired on Tuesday in regards to part 2, where they sit down with the experts. So we got more drama to come. Okay, so let's get the conversation started down in the comment section. What do you think about where all of our cast members are at this point from the UK season 7? What do you think about Chanita and Jordan's situation? That was the biggest topic tonight and what's going on with these two. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.